I should have made some final points before I crossed it off. So let me make the final points. If you want to take a reader someplace abnormal, one way you can be assured of that is to make up your own world, right? Sci-fi, fantasy. So we see that a lot. You could also just come up with a series of events that no one else has ever conceived. And I put an asterisk there. No one else has ever conceived. Well, somebody's conceived of just about every conflict that you and I can think of, right? You know, there's the saying, there's no such thing as great writing, there's just great rewriting. So when you're using your imagination to come up with an adventure, you're coming up with places to go, you're coming up with conflicts. If it excites you, it's probably good enough to excite the reader. You'll never be completely unique, and that's okay. You'll have your own flavor, your own style. But this is where I wanted to talk about the tropes, is that if you get too crazy, like if you come up with a 10-headed, 7-horned beast that's from some galaxy that nobody's heard of, and you're just out in left field, nobody's gonna know how to connect with that. So, does everybody know what a trope is before I get into too much detail? So, this is where it's kind of like, it's okay, it's not quite plagiarism, you don't plagiarize, but you want to use the tropes. And some adventure tropes, you just think, one of my favorites, I have to admit, Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen, right? The dystopian world, is an adolescent teenager, I don't know, someone in their mid to late teens is thrust into combat, and it works for Hunger Games, it works for Divergent, Allegiant, it works for Maze Runner, right? So, you know, and it's okay that this trope gets reused, it's okay if you reuse tropes, your job is to use your imagination. And we're not going to talk too much about imagination here, because frankly I think you're a writer, you have a good one. I don't need to nurture that. You don't need to nurture that today. You've got a good imagination. You just need to put a framework to get it moving forward. So, how to do that? Let's move on with characterization. Some terms that have thrown me off before I want to define clearly is plot-driven versus character-driven. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was doing my research, plot-driven is, well, actually, character-driven, I used to think meant the character did a lot of stuff and drove the plot forward. But it's more like character-focused. It's more like the cerebral thing that Pat was talking about. What's going on in a character's head? How is a character developing? How are interpersonal relationships happening? And it's not exactly what you were saying, but it's kind of like a pitfall. If you're trying to write an adventure that's cerebral, you might end up doing character development by accident.
Yep.
And you might end up creating a character-driven story by accident. And that's not terrible. You do need to develop characters. In every adventure, we want to see something happen to the character, even if it's just a little bit. But what we're going for is what's called plot-driven, where the external world, we were saying physical, Sandy, we're concerned about, someone over here said travel, is it CK? Yeah, it's something that you're going to be able to see. We're going somewhere, we're going on a journey. So the character has to be able to make quick decisions. This gets us into pace. We don't want the character to sit there and brood and think, do I want to take on this conflict? Am I capable of this? Am I doing this to become closer or farther away in a personal relationship? No, it's, I'm going to go do something that is visible, that's action-oriented. So this gets us into what's called plot-driven approach. But that being said, I want to start talking about characters first, because as Richard said, we have a protagonist and an antagonist. You have to get those right. If you get the wrong character into your adventure, that character won't drive the story. So let's talk about characters a little bit. But before I do, I want to ask a question of everybody. So I'll give you two choices. When you're setting out to write a story, do you generally think about a riveting plot first, or do you think about compelling characters first? So raise your hand if you're more plot oriented too. I guess I'll make a third category of unsure. Character driven. You're thinking more compelling characters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so most of us are character driven. So that could be a challenge. It's not good, it's not bad. It is what it is. If you're more like the 5 of you that are into the character, and you consider that I just said that we're going to minimize character development, you might be thinking, well, I want to develop a character. Stories are about people. Well, you can keep part. When you're writing an adventure, you're going to have to work on more decisive action by your character and less the internal monologue, less the internal development, even less person-to-person, interpersonal relationship. I see a smirk in the audience. I won't say who, but is this landing with everybody, or is it not making sense? I'm picking on you, Lanny? Yeah, because you're smirking.
I was smirking. It's heading home.
Is it? Okay. Well, that's good then. So that implies we're challenging the paradigm. Okay, Sandy. Yes.
So, I've been thinking about the characters first usually. But this summer I reread On Writing by Stephen King.
Yeah.
And when he talked about how he tries to envision a situation, that sounds easier. You know, like what if a writer ends up in the home of a deranged woman, and he can't move, and she holds him in the bed? What can happen?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a cool way to approach it, and then you can spin off on who the character is in more detail. But he put me in mind of thinking of situations,
Yeah, and
which is plot.
yeah, well, you bring up an excellent point, is that they go hand in hand. Because we as people don't develop unless we're out living, doing something. Sitting at home is safe and boring. Getting out the door is, that's where you get into your excitement, your abnormal situations, and your danger. And so yeah, I mean, you're catching me here where I'm saying it's a framework, and I'm glad that you've called out that it's not in isolation. You can't develop a person in isolation. You can't have a plot in isolation. I think that's the point that you're trying to make.
I was just thinking, basically this is another way to show character. Instead of doing all the internal monologue, you're saying, how does this character choose, what action does this character choose? So you're approaching character through action points, as you know, do you choose A or B or C or whatever it is. You know, instead of going, you know, navel gazing or a lot of internal monologue or whatever, you're doing character, but you're doing it through how this character moves through a situation and what, you know, action points are chosen. So it's just a different way of handling character, you know, even though it's a plot. You know, it reveals what the person's character is in this situation. What are you choosing? You know, so that's how I'm just looking at it.
Cindy, I like when you said you reveal, because that's exactly what I think is going on there. You as the writer have to get to know your character, which is why I put characters ahead of plot here, even though I'm saying plotting is, the plot-driven story is more important for the adventure. We have to get the character right. You may have to develop the character completely in your mind, just not on paper, right? And that will be revealed through the action. So you can have, was that Misery, was that the story where the man was held captive in a deranged woman's bedroom? That helped.
Yeah.
That helped develop the character, but the character also helped write the plot. They do go hand in hand. And if you know your character 100% up here, which takes a lot of effort, you can reveal them through the adventure. I think that hits the nail on the head, Cindy. Okay, CK?
Yep. I'm just in total agreement with what you all are saying, and to expound on that, like, when I sit down to write a story, I use, you know, some people call it the pyramid method, where I just start with the concept, just like the tagline, and then I kind of start with like, okay, what would the blurb on the back of the book say? What makes a compelling story? Because you have to know what you're writing about. But then when I decide, okay, who are the characters who are gonna be, you know, the best types of personalities to make this story, this kind of story, the most interesting or the most fun to read or write. And oftentimes I'll do like a whole profile on the characters, like half of the information never makes it into the book, but it doesn't need to because it can be implied, and as long as I know it and I understand that character fully, then I can execute that in that story. But yeah, I usually just start with the plot just to make an interesting story. But what you were saying, you want to understand your characters very, very well, but you don't need to find a way to drip all that detail into the actual story.
Perfect, that's a great wrap up, CK. So let's, I wanna make a couple points and then we're gonna share our characters. Yeah, it's a workshop, right? That means you have to do some work. Okay. I do want to make sure that we have proper motivation, which will fall out of the character development. That they're consistent within themselves. You know, you don't have a risk taker that's all of a sudden shy, that becomes a risk taker again. CK hates that. I read
I've read many
Yeah.
books that do that,
Yeah.
inconsistent characters.
I'm guilty of it. I mean, don't do as I do as I say, right? You go back 13 years, I can hardly read my first book. They are strong and they are weak. Even Superman, who is about as strong as they come, has kryptonite, right? And they're likable. You don't, you know, I don't know why I like Katniss Everdeen, I just do. You know, maybe it's because I wish I had her courage. So, I'm gonna pick on you, Sybil. Because you've written 45 books. Can you share one of your characters?
I would go with Jalen, and Jalen Gates. He's from Stealing Innocence.
I can take some of this down. Tell us about Jalen. What motivates Jalen?
Money
I like him
motivates.
already.
Money and power motivates him. He is,
Sure this is the good guy?
actually, he's got a Godzilla effect about him. He is selfish, though. He cares only about himself. He doesn't want to share anything, and he feels that women are good for one thing.
He doesn't sound very likable.
This is your
But
protagonist.
he has a best friend who is a female, and it's like she's his sister, so she brings out the little.
She reveals the
She
good
reveals
qualities.
the
I'm gonna say
good
these are Jalen's
qualities.
weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there you go.
But his strength is his relationship with his best friend.
So he has a friendship bond.
Yeah, he has a great friendship bond.
So we're trying to tie this to adventure. He has a friendship bond. This must change him into someone who can do something, right?
In a bad situation, he comes out the winner, no matter what. So in any kind of situation that you put him in, or someone he cares about is in, he can get in there and make it right.
So I'll say he becomes Superman.
He becomes.
Becomes Superman.
Almost.
I don't draw.
Almost. Almost.
Do a triangle.
Strong
You go strong.
when friends are in need.
Already, yes. He's
Okay, that's
he's
a
the
likable
perfect,
trait.
yeah, he's the perfect best friend.
And I like that you started with this stuff too, money, power, selfish, because how many times do we write the Superman without the kryptonite? Just puts,
Mary Sue. They call it a Mary Sue when your protagonist is just perfect and has no weaknesses or flaws.
I call that my wife.
Aw, that's sweet.
He's sitting in the back of the room.
No couch tonight.
You mean I fit in the bed?
You will allow him a pillow.
So I think, likable comes out of that.
Hey.
Strong, weak, I'll just assume you keep them consistent.
Oh, yes.
Motivation is to protect friends.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, Sylvia. Anybody else wanna go? It's kinda scary to put it out there, but you're writers, you're putting it all out there eventually, right? Do we just all understand it and wanna move on to the next thing? Let's do that.